What is up, my nerds? Welcome to episode 3 of Roll for Nerdy Check podcast. This time around, Zack and I get into some different things. Also, if you haven't noticed that the podcast episode's a little bit longer than usual, but that's okay. That's what makes it fun. At the beginning, we talk about Zack's adventure of him going to MAGFest. So if you've never been to MAGFest or don't know what that is, tune in. Then we get into some top anticipated games of 2023. Some D&D news. Zack and I love D&D. He's actually our DM, so some controversial news that it's surrounding the D&D world. And then also we talk about some WWE news that's going around. Zack loves WWE, so if you love WWE, check in. And then we kind of talk about, if you were looking into anime, what are top 3 animes that you would recommend to someone who's trying to get into that world? So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And stay nerdy, my friends. There's something cool that you did over the weekend. Actually, later in the week, into the weekend, you went to MAGFest.
I did.
So, explain to the people what MAGFest is, who may not know.
Yeah, so MAGFest, and this was my first year going. I've had friends trying to convince me to go for years and years, and either due to financial just being broke and not going, or just not having the time. It's usually right after New Year's, so I was reluctant. I've been to conventions before. I love conventions, but after the first of the year, I just kind of want to relax and chill, and so I finally went this year because a bunch of my friends were going. Holy crap.
Right.
It's amazing. So MAGFest stands for Music and Gaming Festival. And it takes place in the Gaylord Hotel outside of DC. So it's right on the harbor. It's a huge, massive hotel that has its lobby has a tiny little village and it's got literally it's got buildings inside the lobby of the building. And then most of the rooms kind of look out over the lobby, or a lot of them do, not all of them, obviously.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great view. What's really cool about it, especially for us who had a room that was looking out over the center area, is that a lot of times they'll have music happening in the main. I keep saying lobby, but it's not really a lobby. It's like an atrium.
Okay.
But it's a huge open space, so everything reverberates, everything. So they'll just have people playing violin or piano or guitar and singing and everything like that. And it's usually either anime themed, video game themed, just very nerdy themed music, which is really cool.
That sounds pretty tight.
The way I was sold on this was not. It was good, but it could have been better. The way I was sold on it was oh, it's a really cool music and gaming festival. There's a bunch of games you can play, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. It sounds fun.
Right.
It is the best way that I can describe it is a sleepover with every nerdy friend you have and 20,000 other nerds who share the same, neurotypical, we're ADHD people out here just having fun. There was unlike normal cons, where you're kind of packed in, this one was busier, but I didn't at any point feel like I was shoulder to shoulder with people. So I've been to San Diego Comic-Con, I've been to New York Comic-Con a bunch, I've been to Otakon, I've been to a bunch of them. So this is not a con. This is a festival.
It's a festival. Okay.
What makes it really cool is that most things are open, if not most of the day, all day. So they have a giant room that is split into fourths. That is old school consoles all the way up to current consoles.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah, and you can go check out games. They have. I played. Last episode we had talked about Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I played some Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I raised a little Chow baby.
There you go.
I got him into karate because that's what you do with kids. You got to teach them to protect themselves.
Did you happen to see the Dreamcast at all?
I played it on the Dreamcast.
You did? Okay.
I thought to myself, I was like, Shane's going to be so proud because I'm playing it on Dreamcast.
Nice.
And it was just open. I didn't go check it out. It was just on one of the TVs. And, people sit down and they play and then they get up and go whenever they feel like it.
Did they have the memory cards with the screens in it?
No, they didn't.
Oh, damn.
I think that it would have been like a liability issue if people would have just kept taking them.
Yeah, taking them,
probably not. You know, there's always, I would say 95% of the people at this at MAGFest are very cool, but there's always 5% of any crowd that's going to be full of crappy people.
I think that's everywhere. You know, there's always the crowd that you have that is decent, you know, 95%, but then that 5% is always trying to get into some bullshit. So
yeah.
Yeah, the music
like, back corner of the console area is all Super Smash Bros. Dedicated. So they have, you know, these are people who come to MAGFest aren't messing around. They have tournaments that are going. These people, I mean, it's hard. Now that said, there are a lot of, you know, people like me who are like average at, you know, we continue to sell ourselves as like the average nerd. You know, I'm not I'm not a Super Smash Bros savant or anything, but I can hold my own. There are people like that as well, but they do have like big tournaments that are going too.
I'm gonna say I play some Smash, but I don't really compete against too many rare people that are out in the wild, because I have a feeling like they like try to like play you a little bit, you know? Oh yeah, dude, I don't really play this much, and then they pick like the most random character and like smoke you. It's like, oh, good game, man. Like, dude, I got embarrassed.
We're like a couple minutes in, and I already have a really good tangent for you. So,
okay.
Story about my life. One of my best friends in the world is also one of my former roommates. We lived together, like somewhat after college, like a couple years after college. We lived in a townhouse together, and he's very good at Super Smash Bros. He would say, I can hear him in my head saying that there are people who are much better than him. That's
as everyone says when they're good at something.
Yeah, it's like being the best guy at AAA baseball and then being like, well, there's a lot of guys in the major who are better than me. And I'm like, you're very good. So when we lived together, he would trick me. And by trick me, I mean I was a little dumb. So we would take turns doing chores. Hey, it's your turn to do the dishes. Hey, it's your turn to vacuum, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Except he started being like, he would be like, all right. I'd be like, hey, it's your turn to do the dishes. And he'd be like, all right, let's play Super Smash Bros. And whoever loses does the dishes. And my competitive spirit is like, hell yeah, let's go. And I knew for a fact he was much better than me, but just the opportunity. And the thing is, I would be like, when it was my turn, I'd be like, let's play Super Smash. And he'd be like, nah, it's you do the dishes. So like, I ended up doing the dishes.
He didn't want to take that chance, even though he probably would have won. He's just like, I'm not gonna roulette this, you know. I mean, so
yeah, he would 100%. You know, like when people are like, you know, sharking. What is the expression? When people are like at pool, when they're like a pool shark.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a smash shark. So he would just be like, hey man, let's just play some games to see who does the chores. So I ended up doing, when we lived together for a year, I did like 80% of the dishes and chores, dude. Because it's how I got really good at chores. My wife appreciates that. But like, yeah, it's because every time he'd be like, what if we smash for it? And I'd be like, okay. Destroy.
Jesus.
So back to MAGFest. So they have the console room. Again, this giant convention center sized room was split into fours. So it had the consoles, which had, again, everything. They had like giant projectors with N64s hooked up to them, so it would project onto like a big white screen for you. So like me and my wife played like WWF 1999 No Mercy, I think was the game. And so we were like sitting there, and oh my god, again, going backwards on consoles can be really hard because like nothing on the N64 was like great. It's all great, especially nostalgia wise, but like in terms of controls, coordination, like we'd be sitting there and it would be like and like they're not actually hitting each other. It's wonderful because they have literally hundreds if not thousands of games, old school games, N64 games and NES games. I played the SNES Super Mario World in your honor as well.
Nice, thank you.
I was like, Shane would be so proud of me. And then it goes all the way up to current generation. They have a section to bring your own Switch, so you can just plug it in and play with strangers if you want to. Hook up Mario Party or Smash or Mario Kart. It was great. They have one of the other fourths was like a merch area where you can buy
Okay.
either convention merchandise, but a lot of like independent artists will bring stuff, stickers, artwork, cool stuff. One of my friends got like it's a Game Boy Advance that had been turned into like a terrarium and it had Pokemon in it. It was really cool.
Damn.
Stuff like that. Yeah, really cool stuff. Then the next one over is like an independent game area where like independent game artists can bring their stuff. I got to play. That's one of the cooler areas in my opinion because you get some really original stuff. So they had like a one-dimensional game. I can't remember the name off. I think it's something like Wiggle Blast or something like that. But it's basically like imagine like a strip of lights, like a just like a really long strip of lights, and you control a little green dot, and it's one of the only one-dimensional, if not the only one-dimensional game. And it's literally you just send your green dot down, and there will be little red dots along the way. And the controller is like, you know that thing that goes behind doors where you flick it and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those. It's like a big one of
Door
those.
stop.
That's the controller. Is you're like leaning it forward and backwards, and then when you want to attack, you flick it, so it goes, and it creates your green dot becomes two little yellow dots, and it like. So you're trying to like one-dimensionally move your guy down the thing, attack the red dots. If you hit the red dots, it explodes, and if you don't, you get to the end, and it does like this really cool light show.
That's
so that
cool.
was really cool. There's just a lot of really. I don't want to spend the entire episode just like shouting out independent games, but there were some really cool independent games there. And some of the cool things that I saw, just like clever, smart things to do. Like a bunch of the indie game people brought like couches. So instead of having to like stand or sit on like, hard metalish chairs and stuff like that, they brought couches so that you could sit on a couch and play games. And then the last section was the arcade, which has tons of pinball machines, which were great. They had a bunch of like rhythm games, different kinds of rhythm games. Bryn loved those. My wife is a huge, she really likes the rhythm games. So she was having a ball doing that. They have Killer Queen for the nerdy community who knows that. I've played Killer Queen twice, and it was there. It was at MAGFest. So, but I have a lot of friends who play, and it's a really fun game. What else was there? Just a lot of really good stuff. They do have like panels and stuff what you can attend, but that's really afterthoughty. And a lot of the panels that are there are more fun or entertainment than educational. Like like when I go to New York Comic-Con, I'm there to see like announcements. Same thing, San Diego Comic-Con. You're there for the big announcements. You're there for all that, and the huge like shopping floor and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it's heavy panel. This is a sleepover with nerds, and the great thing is the arcade room and the console room, they're open 24 hours for the entire festival. So
no shit.
4 a.m, you want to go play Super Mario Bros. It's there. At 5:30, they have a giant board game room. If you want to check out board games, that was also open 24/7. So me and my friends were playing Binding of Isaac at 5:30 in the morning on Thursday night, Friday night. I can't remember which. And then because it's all attached to the hotel, unlike a normal convention, if you're like, my feet are starting to hurt, or I'm tired, or I just could use a refresher, you just go up to the room. It's like, hey, instead of turning right and going over to this panel room, you just hit the elevators, go up to your room, and you just chill. And people will just like hang out, party. I know a lot of people will just like leave their door open so that people can come and go. A lot of people have like posters on their doors. They're like hotel doors that are like, sign your name or write something funny or graffiti this or whatever it is. Like the convention itself has a lot of like graffiti boards. It's like, hey, this is sponsored by XYZ company. Do whatever you want to it, and so you can draw stuff, and it's full of nerds. And nerds are really creative people, so there's really fun drawings on there. There's really creative sayings. There's really funny slogans. It becomes a thing. There's one of the things I love is apparently this is a yearly thing. They have shrines to people. So Danny DeVito almost always gets a shrine, from what I understand. And people will just bring like a cutout of him, put it down, and it starts on Wednesday night or Thursday morning. And someone will put it out, and then by the end of the con, there's like literally hundreds of Magic cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, condoms. Somebody brought like DVDs, rhythm games. They put them down. People just like pay at the toll.
Homage.
Pay the like
pay the troll toll, man.
Pay the troll toll. Somebody got like a huge flag of Danny DeVito when he's in the like he's like naked, and I forget. I think it's from Sunny. Always Sunny.
It's Always Sunny, yeah.
Where he's like naked and kind of in the like he looks like a turkey.
He's in the
almost.
couch. He's in the couch.
And he's just, and it's just like they made a giant flag and put it down. So they had one for Betty White, they had one for Brendan Fraser, they had one for Tommy the Green Ranger, who had passed away recently. So just really cool stuff that was everywhere, and I really just it's so fun, and I also 80% of the nerd friends that I had were there, so. You know, you're walking around and you're like, oh, hey, there's so-and-so. Oh, hey, there's so-and-so. Oh, let's go over to so-and-so's room. Or you'll get a text that's like, hey, we're playing board games in room 105. And you're like, great, we'll be right there. And you just go and do whatever you want whenever. It took me like a good 6 hours because I kept being like, so what do we do? And he's like, whatever you feel like doing. Because I went with my buddy Adam, the one I was telling you I used to live with.
Yeah.
And he was like, whatever you want to do. And I was like, when are the panels? And he was like, I mean, they're around, but like, just go do stuff. And I was like, okay. So I just kind of like started exploring, and again, it's music and gaming. So there's also one of the giant halls is playing music almost the entire time. They have like really good nerdy artists coming in. They had a guy, I can't remember his name right now, who's like a rapper, and he does like anime rap, and he's very successful. Bunch of orchestra bands that are playing. Game Brass was one of them. I can't remember the other way. 8-Bit Band, I think, was one of them.
There's a band that I used to listen to. I still listen to them. It's I Fight Dragons. They were pretty much an 8-bit anime style band, rock band that was out there.
Yeah, I'm sure if they have not played that they have been considered or have considered going. It's really cool. It's really awesome. My only regret is that it didn't go longer.
Yeah, when I heard you went, I was kind of bummed because with my scheduling, it kind of conflicted with stuff. But I'm definitely going next year. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna buy everything early and we'll go.
Yeah, it's a blast and a half, and I think it has catapulted straight to number one. It is my number one favorite convention, and I have a lot of friends who told me that, and I didn't get it. And now I totally get it. Like it took me years, and it makes me sad because if I could go back and go to this convention for the last 5 years, people have been asking me to go. I would go back and redo it. See, my only regret is that I didn't mag for longer.
Well, it's okay. You went now, and you got a great experience, and we're going to go again, so it's great.
This is a life lesson, everybody. Be open to new experiences because you never know. Because I got to say, going into it, I was very stressed because I didn't have any concept of what it was other than just a convention, but I was told it's not just a convention. So the only thing I had was the stress of like, I got to figure out how to drive down there. I got to figure out parking. I got to figure out who's watching my dogs while I'm gone. So like I just had the stress, and then as soon as I got there, all of that washed away.
Maybe
like, cool.
Maybe they undersold it so bad because they didn't know how you would react. Like, who really wants to sell something to like the ultimate extreme and then you'd be let down?
Maybe. I think that it just I don't think I quite grasped it's in a hotel, so like literally I would spend hours on the game floor, and then I would go upstairs and play games for hours, and everybody apparently does this, but I came dramatically underprepared. There was like a ton of food in our room, like people went and did like full grocery shops. I had friends who were staying in one of the really nice rooms, and they brought with them a panini press, a double air fryer, like it's got two columns in it, coffee machine. They had like cabinets full of snacks, food and drinks and alcohol, and all of the good stuff. So I think I was so focused on the convention side of things that I didn't stop to consider the like it's more of a festival than a con, because it's just about, like, go chill and have fun with your friends.
Have fun,
and, especially for me, I'm very I used to say I'm very extroverted. I think I'm very extroverted with the people I care about.
Sure.
I like social interaction a lot when it's my friends. So this is great because you'll run into your friends. You'll stop by their room. They'll stop by your room. You'll just text them and be like, we're going to the board game room. Does anyone want to come? And when most of your friend circles are there, I have 5 or 6 different circles of friends that are there, and I'm just bumping into people and I'm seeing people, and I ran into one of my friends who was playing Mario, like Super Mario 64, and so I just like sat down with him and we traded off playing 64. It was great. It was absolutely wonderful. I know people fly in from across the country, and I'm very late to the like MAGFest bandwagon, but if you haven't heard of it, or if it's new to you, and especially if you live in the like DC area, check it out next year. It's incredibly fun. Come hit us up. Maybe we'll have a roll for Nerdy Check at MAGFest.
Yeah, who knows, The music part, though, like, how late would the music go on for?
The music would go fairly late. One of the apparently this was new this year, but what was really cool is the hotel started putting up cameras, especially in the music areas. So if you couldn't get in for some reason, or if you have your handicaps, your disabilities, if you just didn't want to leave your room, you could literally flip on the TV and like see the different music areas playing. Or like you could catch a couple of the panels on there as well. So like if you wake up, or if you're getting ready, or if you only kind of want to check out a thing and you don't want to go downstairs, you could just turn the TV on and it was there. But it would go until, I want to say 11 for the big ones at least, and then maybe even midnight. But also there was so many music people there as well, music fans who literally would just, they have a jam room where you can just show up and either rent equipment or bring your own equipment, and it's just like, hey, I play guitar. I don't actually, but theoretically, if I was a person who played guitar, I could just show up with my guitar and be like, hey, I don't normally have people I can play with because no one my age plays instruments anymore, or like my band broke up, whatever the case. You just show up and be like, I've got my guitar, I'm gonna jump in, and they're like, yeah, come on in. And so like one of my buddies, Brett, I think was playing, he just like jumped in and like met a bunch of like individual people in the jam room, and they were like, cool, by the end of this we want to be performing like as a group just for the weekend. Their goal was that by like Saturday or Sunday that they would have like a couple of things that they could do. And you can go into the jam room and listen to people practice and jam, but people would also just kind of like be in the hallways and just be kind of like playing guitar or playing piano or playing violin. There was a couple of people who were like doing like performing dances to them as the music was playing. They would just like dance, and it's really chill vibes the entire way through. And like, and I don't think there was a single time, and this is rare for me, I judge people. There was not a single time that I was like, man, this person's annoying, or man, that's really obnoxious. Which I do at conventions a lot. People will cut you off as you're walking, or like bump into you, and you're like, this idiot. You know what I mean? And that didn't happen to me at all, which is rare. It was just a bunch of really cool people. Not to mention, shout out to the Gaylord, because they have a marketplace in that little town square I was mentioning to you that had like under heat lamp food that you can just kind of grab, and it was expensive as I mean, not super expensive, but it was like $15 for a cheeseburger or $14 for like a small pepperoni pizza or something like that. But that food was good. I mean, I got the burger and I was like, oh shit. And then Bryn got pizza and I was like, oh shit, this is really good. And it's like, look, I don't love paying the it should be $10 instead of $15. But if I'm going to pay for it, at least it's good.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from experience, con food is not very good unless they have oh, we got food trucks outside or something like that.
Right.
That's because that's not really their food. That's food that they bring here. Con food is generally pretty bad. Or like gas station quality, where it's like, oh yeah, I got a sandwich and it gets the job done.
Right.
That food was very good, and while expensive, worth it.
It's just you're paying for the convenient type thing. You're paying for the convenience of being
honestly,
down there.
the marketplace has a little I want to say outdoor, but it's like outdoor indoor seating, where it's like you're still technically inside, but it's like out of the marketplace, and you can just sit there, and they have like the twinkle lights streaming, and it's right next to where the music can sometimes play and where a lot of the photography happens. So throughout the convention, they'll be like, okay, we're doing a Pokemon photo shoot for anyone who cosplayed for Pokemon, and then you can watch people go up and see all the cool cosplays and everything like that. So not only are you getting the food and the convenience, you also get to sit down and watch what's happening, and it's really cool and really beautiful. And yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. And I'm experiencing post-con depression from I have to go back to the real world now.
it's like you had a little mini vacation, but like you know when you go on vacation sometimes you feel more I say exhaust. You're supposed to go on vacation to feel relaxed and
Right.
refreshed, but every time I go on vacation, I feel more exhausted and
Well,
stressed
and
out.
part of that I think is that when you're coming back from vacation, two things. One, when you're on vacation, or at least me, I don't know how everyone vacations, but when I'm going on vacation, I'm trying to, fully get what I'm doing. So if I fly out
Yeah.
to San Diego, and it's not even Comic-Con, just San Diego to experience it. You're like, all right, I want to make sure I hit the beach. I want to make sure I go to the restaurant. I want to make sure I hit this. I want to make sure I do that. And so even if you don't have a schedule, you kind of have like a to-do list, and
Yeah.
then it ends with you coming home, which is either driving or flying or train, and you like, yeah, I gotta get on the train, I gotta do this, I gotta get on my flight, I
Yeah.
gotta go get through security, and that's just a very stressful experience. So by the time you get home, you're like tapped, because
Yeah.
now you've done all the things, you've made sure you're trying to check all the boxes, you're going through security, you're driving, whatever. What was nice about this for me selfishly is that we live within driving distance, very like under an hour to drive from the convention here. So when it was done, I loaded up my car and I drove for 45 minutes and was home.
Yeah.
Great. I
And
literally left at I stayed very late on Sunday, which for that convention is 1 or 2 o'clock. Got home by 3, and then there was no I had packed a backpack and a gym bag full of clothes. In the backpack I had nerdy stuff.
sure.
And I just dropped them, emptied my bag into the laundry machine, and went upstairs. And now it's 3 o'clock on Sunday, and you're like, wow, I've still got basically half a day to have that unwind experience after
Yeah.
vacation. You know how you should always try to book at least an extra day. It's like I want my vacation, I want to get home from vacation Saturday so that I have Sunday to kind of
My wife and I do
acclimate.
that all the time. We always do that. We didn't do it one year, and I told her, I was like, we're never going to do this again, because it's that stress of getting things done for the work week. And I was like, we're never going to do that. I was like, I'll always take either the day before or then the day after before we go on vacation off, so that way I just don't feel that obligation of stress of having to get a lot done
Right,
in
because you feel like you're
few
going
hours.
from thing to thing to thing to thing without actually relaxing on your vacation.
Yeah.
I love going up to New York. It's one of my favorite places on the planet, and it's within driving distance or bus distance from here. So I go to New York quite frequently, and I'll try to take weekend trips, and I'll do all that. And while I love it up there, it's a lot of you get on the bus and then you go do New York's not like a let's kick it in the hotel room kind of place.
Yeah.
You go
Yeah,
out,
no.
you walk around, you hop on the subway, check out different restaurants, check out different stores, just
Yep.
kind of take in the whole New York experience. There's not a lot of just kicking it. So yeah, same thing for me. When I go up to New York, I'm I used to just I would try to take a weekend trip where I would leave Friday, get up there late Friday night, get in the hotel room, maybe go out for dinner, and then Saturday you're doing the whole thing. Sunday you get a half day, and then you take the bus back or take the train back or drive back, and then you get back. And I started being maybe I'll do this on 3-day weekends because you come back and you're you haven't had a chance to rest, and especially if your job is draining on you, or if you're just kind of tired. The whole point of the vacation is to not do the normal thing, but that's full of doing stuff. So that's why this convention's really great, because while it's got a ton of doing stuff, it's just kind of you just wander. At one point I just was wandering around. They had a D&D jump in jump out room where you could just sit down at a table with your dice and a character sheet and be yeah, I'm going to be playing this character, and somebody's sitting there to DM you, and they'll, they have people there to be you walk in and they're you're hi, I'd like to play D&D. And they're okay, looks like they have an opening at table 6. And then you go and you sit down at table 6, and it's they incorporate you into it. I didn't get a chance to do it because I didn't come prepared. I had dice with me in case I needed them for whatever nerdy reason, but I didn't have a character sheet and everything. And so they were they had them. They were you can make a character sheet, and I was I'm gonna wander somewhere else now. But I just thought it was really cool.
That is pretty cool though. That is.
They had
cool.
a tabletop card game room that had Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that. They had boxes, dude, boxes of Magic the Gathering cards. I don't play Magic. I wish I did.
Yeah.
And it was boxes of Magic cards that were mostly common cards, but they were free. You could just take them. You could just take cards and make a deck out of them and then go play with people. And
only Magic? Any Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards?
I didn't see any Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I didn't look super hard because I was just kind of at that point exploring. But I thought it was really cool. I circled back later and it was half empty-ish. People have been taking them, but again, really cool. And of course, they have like draft nights for Magic. I don't know how to draft in Magic, but they have draft nights for it, which basically means like everybody. I think it means everybody just kind of like puts cards in and then takes cards out. So it's like I'm going to put this out and then. You'll take this and I'll take this and that kind of thing. But it's really cool. They had just the imagine the greatest sleepover you could possibly imagine. Like if you could sit down with all your best friends and be like, cool, we're going to have a 4-day boys weekend or girls weekend, or, whatever in between. And we're just going to sit down and nerd out for the entire weekend. Think of every idea you could possibly think of to make it like an epic sleepover weekend or an epic boys weekend or whatever, and that times 10, 50 even. Like if money was no object, that is what MAGFest is. It's the greatest sleepover with 20,000 nerds that you ever had. And because you'll probably appreciate this as a nerd, especially when you're letting your nerd flag fly. A lot of times you don't let it all the way out. You let it maybe depending on the room, 50%, 60%. Maybe if you're with a bunch of nerds, 70, 80%. This is like allowing yourself to be 100% nerdy because you know that everyone else there has the same goal in mind. So whether it's for music, whether it's for gaming, whether it's for anime, whether it's for somewhere in the middle or somewhere outside of that, just let your nerd flag fly and everyone's cool with it. Everyone not only is cool with it, but they support it. At one point, my wife was wearing like a Mewtwo, like it's a full body like onesie. She was doing Mewtwo because it was Super Smash Bros. Themed. So she was Mewtwo. I was Pokemon Trainer. A bunch of our friends still there, Smash cosplays. And she was in Mewtwo, and this girl like came up to her with like a metallic Pokeball, except it wasn't a Pokeball. It was like one of the specialty balls. I think it was a quick ball. And she walks up to her and she goes, "Here, have this. I catch you." And Bryn was like, "Thanks." And she was like, "You're welcome," and just walked away. She opens it up. There's like candy, a Pokemon card, and I think like a pin or something inside of it, like a Pokemon pin. She just gave it to her because that was her way of enjoying the experience, was like giving to others. Or she was hitting on her, or both. And which I can't blame her. My wife is smoking hot. So it's just cool to me that like that's the vibe that nerds bring to the table, and I just don't think I could get that anywhere else. And so it's just it. I could talk about that. I could do an entire podcast episode about MAGFest.
It's almost like MAGFest. They should sponsor us, and that's our sponsor, MAGFest.
Thanks, MAGFest. No, if MAGFest wants to sponsor us, they could 100% hit me. Roll into our DMs, MAGFest, because we will absolutely. We'll do a live podcast in one of the panel rooms. People can stop by, talk about it. That'd be great.
At Roll for Nerdy Check on Instagram, Facebook.
Roll for Nerdy Check. All streaming social platforms. We are available.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I know we're in January. Tickets don't come out until September, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm not trying to rush the year through, but
now that I know what it is, all of my friends who don't go or haven't been like you, I'm like, you're coming with me, and you're coming with me, and you're coming with me.
Yeah, because when you said you were going, because like because you said you weren't sold like that thing, like you were just told some details about it, so you're like man, I got all this. You were like stressing out about it. I remember you telling me like I gotta pack the car, I gotta leave work at this time, then I gotta head down there, and then all this stuff, and I'm like yeah, I can get it. I'm like, but you're probably gonna have a good time. And then you came back, you're like, dude, it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, so Wednesday before, so technically Wednesday is considered like day zero, which is like people show up at the hotel, everything's getting set up, you get your registration, everything. My buddy Adam was like, come down Wednesday night. I'll see you Wednesday night. And I was like, man, I've got a lot. We were recording an episode of the podcast that week, or I should say that night. I had for those who don't know, I'm also a voiceover artist, so I had like several auditions I had to do that night.
Yeah.
And I hadn't packed yet because
Yeah.
procrastination.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm not going down Wednesday night because again, I had no concept of what it was, and all I
Yeah.
had on my plate was stress. So I was like, the stress of driving down there, the stress of packing, the stress of getting everything I needed to done. And I was like, man, I'm gonna wake up Thursday whenever I wake up, and I'm just gonna drive down there. So I ended up getting down there like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Thursday. Knowing what I know now, I would have just finished the podcast episode, done my auditions, thrown whatever shirts I had into a bag, and been like, and just made my way down there for the extra day. And that's not some. I'm by nature a pretty slothy guy, so I would have in normal circumstances I would be like, well, I got to sleep in. That was no. I would have 100%. I would have been, especially knowing now that like most of it is open 24/7. So if you get down there at 10 o'clock, a lot of people are just getting warmed up.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's good to know. Like you had a practice run for me. I lived vicariously through you, so now I know what not to do. So exactly I'm going down the first night.
Yeah, me too. Night 0, in 12 months and counting.
Yeah. Anything else about MAGFest that is interesting, or do you want to talk about?
Not anything in particular.
Yeah, I think you hit it pretty good. I mean, it sounds awesome. I
talked pretty sufficiently.
Everyone, you inspired me to want to go. I was upset that I couldn't go because of the scheduling things, but I'm definitely looking forward to going next year.
I will say this: the last thing I'll say is I bought merch while I was there, like official MAGFest merch. Their merch is awesome. The theme this year was Super Smash Bros. So the shirt that I have is like Super MAGFest, and it looks like a Super Smash Bros. Like mashup, like the cover art for Super Smash Bros. Except it's all MAGFest stuff. So I have a shirt that does that. They have a hoodie. They have like a hoodie that they do every year that I didn't buy, but I'm going to buy because I think you can buy it on their website. But they always have like a themed hoodie for the year. So this one again, Super MAGFest. But it was like it's like a teal, like a bright, kind of like the hexagon that you've got in the background there. That color, that like light blue. And the back has the Super MAGFest thing, but it looks like, in Super Smash Bros., like right before they like start the match, it'll be like boom, 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 and it's got like 4 strips or 2 strips or however many. It's like, this one's Captain Falcon, this one's Pikachu, this one's whatever. That is what it looks like on the back, except it's all mag stuff. The only regret I have is that I got a size too big, and my friend was like, all right, we just wash it in warm water, it's mostly cotton and it'll shrink, and I'm like, but it's so big, and she's like, it'll be fine.
yeah how do you know the theme? Do they like put it on like when they go to buy tickets, they tell you what the theme is and stuff like that?
It'll be up like on their website. So people, I guess people return stuff, or I don't know how they did it, but they started the weekend with just their merch from this year, and I guess people either bring their old shirts back or something like that, but a couple of shirts went up for sale that were like older themed MAGFest shirts. So I had seen one of the previous themes was like Donkey Kong, and it looked like the Donkey Kong logo, except it said MAGFest. And then there was another one that was, oh shoot, what was it? I can't remember. I'm hoping next year is going to be like Legend of Zelda themed or something like that. I'm very excited to see what the theme is going to be.
Ooh,
that's why we cosplayed Super Smash Bros. People, because I had like I was Trainer Red, so I had like my Pokemon hat, the red vest, jeans. It was because it's a lazy cosplay. It's very easy to walk around the costume.
It's easy, yeah.
I understand why Bryn got her like Mewtwo onesie because our friend recommended it, and we were like, really? Okay. And then we were like, oh, I see. It's a giant pajama party with nerds.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what it's going to be next year. Again, I hope it's like Zelda or Mario or something like that. But it's really cool that they do like different themes every year.
I guarantee you there's a bunch of nerds listening to this who are like, oh my god, I want to go so bad now.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
there are people who fly in from across there's another voiceover I know, a couple of voiceovers I know that came over from like California, Minnesota. One came from Vegas. People fly in for this, and I was like, wow, that sucks. I'm driving 45 minutes in here.
See, that's what's cool too, is like, you know how you said like you go to New York Comic Con, San Diego, and which I'm trying to go to those two this year, and those type of things, like we always have to travel for them. So it's kind of cool that we have something so big close to home, because then you're like,
just like
you
in
don't,
our backyard.
Yeah, in our backyard, essentially. You're like, damn, all right, I don't have to worry about all this crap that everyone else has to worry about for once.
Yeah, yeah, and I think if again, MAGFest, hit me up. Thanks for the plug. I think there are rumors. They sent out an email that was, after the con. I think it was today. That was basically like how did we do? What did you like? What could we change? One of those emails. And they're talking about, rumors about MAGFest West happening, where they would be doing a MAGFest somewhere in California, and I would fly out for that. I would absolutely fly out with, especially because a lot of my voiceover friends are West Coast, so I would love to go out there and do the same thing I have now. Especially if I could get like a group of people on my side here to fly out to, like you, me, Bryn, my wife, and Adam, a handful of other friends, and fly out there, because I have so many voiceover friends out there that I would love to like do a fest like that with them, where it's less professional, more chill. So we'll keep our eyes out. I really hope they do a MAGFest West. They should, because it's freaking amazing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's so cool. And I hope that does come true. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. And but if you don't have anything else you might talk about at all.
Nah, I mean, I could keep going all night if I
wanted. So along with MAGFest, I wanted to at least talk like how you were playing a bunch of games, but there's some anticipating games that are coming out in this year, and I don't know do you play any Final Fantasy at all?
No, actually, that's one of my blind spots. I want to play, because didn't they recently remake Final Fantasy VII, and with like decent graphics? I want to do that now. The thing about Final Fantasy is that turn-based is very hard for me. I think Pokemon is the only one who successfully got me on turn-based.
Well, you would be happy, because Final Fantasy kind of stepped away from the turn-based style. It's more, if you think of like the third-person God of War-esque style of fighting.
That's right up my alley.
So the last Final Fantasy I played was the Final Fantasy remake. I played part 1. But then I played Final Fantasy 15. So they're kind of making like two different type of games at the same time. But Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. And I'm really looking forward to it, because Final Fantasy 15 was really good, but it was more like a future style game. So like your main character, you had pretty much a party of like 4 guys. They all had their own skill sets. But your main character is like a prince in the future. Like, it was kind of cool because it was open world style, and he has a car, and you get to drive the car and stuff in the world and stuff like that. Or you could get a chocobo like usual. But Final Fantasy 16 is kind of taking a step back. Instead of being in the future, it's kind of more going to the medieval style. So I'm really excited to have more of a medieval style Final Fantasy-esque game made by Square Enix, and be like set in that time frame, like set that tone. Because I played like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and stuff like that, but I've never really played a Final Fantasy that wasn't turn-based back in medieval era. So I'm really looking forward to it. So that was one of the top games. With you were talking about how you haven't played the new Final Fantasy. This would be the time to do it, because part 2 is actually, I think at the end of the year, it's coming out. Part 2. So
I do love Square.
Definitely.
So Kingdom Hearts is it's one of my favorite series, probably top 3, if not top 3, certainly top 5. And that's how I know a lot of the Final Fantasy characters, is through Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. So essentially, like the Final Fantasy remake, it did the same thing. It's not turn-based anymore. It's open world, and you get to do like the 3-person. So I recommend it. A lot of people were kind of like, so just be aware. I don't know if you played the original one. It follows the storyline, but a lot of people kind of don't like it too much, because they kind of remake the story itself. So people are used to like the original story, how it flowed and how it went, but it doesn't kind of fit that linear motion. It has some weird-esque stuff that happens at the end of the game. I'm not going to spoil it, because if you play it, you'll see. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I love the graphics of it. Cloud is actually my favorite character. I love Cloud. I played him. I love to see him in Smash. I love to play him in Smash.
He was in Kingdom Hearts too.
Yeah, he's Kingdom Hearts. I played him in. Good.
Sorry, I just thought of a thing that I think you'll be cool with. So a couple weeks ago was a wrestling event in Japan. New Japan Pro Wrestling was putting on their biggest show, which is, I think it's their biggest show, Wrestle Kingdom, which is their version of, like, think of it as like WrestleMania Super Bowl for Japanese wrestling. And one of the big wrestlers who actually wrestles in AEW here in America now, but was very big in New Japan for a long time, Kenny Omega, was wrestling Will Ospreay, who's very big in Japan right now, and they're both, I mean, Mike Tyson fighting Muhammad Ali. That's what that fight was from a couple weeks ago. It was ridiculous. I don't watch a ton of Japanese wrestling. I would like to watch more, and I just don't. Adult life, you know how it is. We're 30, but I heard how good, and I knew that the hype was Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. It's just a killer. Like, I can't think of the words to describe how hype it was. So of course I had to go watch it. Well, Kenny is very nerdy. He does a lot of stuff like that. So his finishing move is called the One-Winged Angel.
Oh shit!
His theme in Wrestle Kingdom, and I think in Japan, I don't know if it is in AEW, but it's the Sephiroth's theme. And One-Winged Angel. When he came out, he had, like, behind him were, like, the really long, big screens to, like, you know, for wrestling entrances. And stuff like that. And, you know, this was a big one. So the screens were very big and very long. And so he comes out and he throws his left arm out, and it put up Sephiroth's one wing on the thing as it played.
Oh, no shit.
And he came out, and I thought that was really cool. That
I gotta watch this video.
Yeah, I'll send you the entrance of it at very least. You should watch the whole match. It's only like, I think it's like 20, 25 minutes. And it is one of those matches. It lived up to the hype. It literally got there's one main guy, Dave Meltzer, who gives, like, wrestling star ratings. Take them or leave them, it's an opinion, but he reviews them. He gave it one of the few times he's ever given above a 5-star rating. He gave it, I think, a 6.5-star rating, and I was like, okay, impress me, show me what a 6.5-star rating is, because I'm already hyped for this match. And so I went and I watched it. Holy crap, it was phenomenal. It's the kind of match that you're like, okay, if you want to get somebody into professional wrestling, this is the match you show them, or this type of match is the type of match you show them. It was ridiculous and phenomenal. And if you're a wrestling fan and you haven't watched it, go watch it.
I'll have to check it out, because I feel like this is a cop out, and people are probably like, of course, but Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game. I love the story. I love the concept of it all, and of course, Cloud is my favorite character. I played them all. I played, like, Final Fantasy Crisis Core on the PSP. It's when you get it's pretty much the prequel to the PS1 game. I played the remake. I played Final Fantasy Dissidia on the PSP as well, and I maxed out all of Cloud's, you know, stats and everything you could do. You know, he gets to do, like, it's called Omni Slash, where he gets to dash around with a bunch of swords, and God, I don't know. I could go on and on about it, but so I'm really excited for part 2, because I played part 1 over and over again on different difficulty levels. So I'm excited to continue the game in this great cinematic looking style and open world-esque. But another game that I think we both will be looking forward to is the new Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, yes, I'm so excited for that game.
And it looks like
I like squealed like a little girl.
Now, it didn't really say, but it looks like it might be in the same timeline.
I think it's going to be a direct continuation of Breath of the Wild.
Okay, that's what I thought, because from what I saw, like, when I was reading about it, it looks like it's in the same world as Breath of the Wild, but it's just more, now you're going to be playing more on these landmarks that are floating in the air. Pretty much these islands, these floating islands are things that you have to do essentially. So
I think
I'm
there's
excited
still
for
going to
that.
be like main ground area, but
Okay.
there will be things ground area and then floating,
Yeah.
floating chunks of land and castle and stuff like that. I heard a really interesting theory the other day that so you know how the Triforce is like technically it's like air, water, and I think fire. I would have to look it up, but the
Yeah.
theory is that like Breath of the Wild is air, Tears of the
Okay.
Kingdom is water, and that the third one it will be like Flames of the something or.
Let's see.
But I thought that would be really interesting because that would be the first time that Legend of Zelda has done like technically all of the Zelda universe exists in one timeline as far as I understand it. But they have done a couple of like direct sequels. Have they ever done a direct sequel?
No, it's usually always different timelines. Like it's always like he has to start over. Like he doesn't remember anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't say about like fire. It just says power, wisdom, and courage.
That's fair. Yeah, there was some kind of theory about it that was just basically like saying that Breath of the Wild, breath symbolizes this, tears symbolize this, and then the third one. So it would be interesting to see if they do like a trilogy for this version of Zelda because it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
So that's why I was wondering if it was a direct like sequel because we've never gotten like a sequel. I mean, have we though? I can't remember. There's so many games. There's so many games. But I think, if I remember correctly, it's always like it's the same characters, but just always like a different timeline or a different universe type of thing.
Yeah, there are videos out there that are like, here's how the Zelda universe ties together. In fact, I think there was a panel at MAGFest talking about like the Zelda timeline. I haven't delved enough into it, but yeah, it's very exciting. It comes out this year. I'm super hyped for it. This year is going to be a really good year for video games.
It's going to be a good year for video games. One of the great games that I love to play on the PS3 is getting a remaster. It's Dead Space. Did you ever play Dead Space?
I never played Dead Space. I'm not much for horror in general, but I've been told it's more thriller than like...
It is. So I don't play horror games either. I can't stand them, but Dead Space was like that one game that it has like horrific things in it that like terrify your dreams, but it is more of a thriller type of game because a lot of the creatures you can body pretty quickly. If you like shoot them in the leg, they kind of like crawl instead of like chasing you down. You just gotta be quick, trigger happy. You know, you gotta be quick with that thing.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. No, I was gonna say.
No, you go.
No, Kevin, what'd you say?
I was just going to say, speaking of pro wrestling, we were going to talk about some of the crazier things happening outside of the, in like corporate worlds. Starting with, if we're talking about pro wrestling, which was never, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. For those who don't know, I used to write for a dirt sheet, which if you don't know what a dirt sheet is, it's basically I'd say half the appeal of watching pro wrestling as an adult is what's happening behind the scenes. Oh, so and so is using his political influence. You know, this person is very successful. He's the champion. He wants this. You know, this person is getting shuffled around here, or like, oh, Vince McMahon, who up until recently owned the company and then didn't own the company, and we'll get into that. But it's part of the appeal is what's happening backstage. Who's using what political power to move forward, or who the boss likes, who the boss doesn't like, why they don't like them, all that stuff. So part of a dirt sheet's job is we basically report on what's happening backstage. Oh, this person is in line for a big push, or oh, this person, got into a backstage fight with this person, and so now neither are, they're both suspended, whatever the case. So I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. I've been watching since I was 5 or 6 years old. My dad introduced it to me, and it was kind of our thing, and then it just stuck with me. I did take some time away the last few years because Vince McMahon, in my opinion, was running the product into the ground. It became very repetitive. The storylines didn't quite make sense. Then AEW popped up as a rival company.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
It's interesting because people can be very like team AEW, team WWE, tribalism and stuff like that. Just like team PlayStation, team Xbox, stuff like that. the way that I describe it is that both can exist because WWE is storytelling that has professional wrestling in it, and AEW is professional wrestling that has storytelling in it. So AEW is going to be a more athletic, a more interesting wrestling product, whereas WWE is going to be a storytelling product that has good wrestling as well.
Okay.
Usually, in the hope. So the craziness that's happening in the wrestling world right now, for those who don't know. So Vince McMahon, I'm going to nutshell this as much as I possibly can. Vince McMahon, 5 or 6 months ago, it was revealed that he was accused of some sexual allegations that were pretty founded. So there was women in the company that not even wrestlers, that he started having a sexual relationship with, and then their salaries went up. Their salaries doubled or whatever. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but bad stuff, things you shouldn't do, especially as the owner of a company. And
sure,
it was, did the money come from Vince or did the money come from the WWE? Because technically, if the money came from Vince, it's frowned upon but not illegal. But if the company was paying the money, then it's illegal, especially because they're publicly traded. So all of this happened. Then other rumors started coming out, and he ended up stepping down from his role as chairman of the company. Now, for normal people, that you go, yeah, that makes sense. Bad guy does bad things. He's told to leave his company. Vince McMahon is an insane person. He's crazy. He is a control freak. He is a guy who his schedule used to be, he would wake up Monday in his mansion, I assume, in Connecticut, and he would fly to wherever Raw was on Monday night. He would get to his office. They would work on Raw, do any last-minute rewrites, which were often. He very often would throw the script out hours before the show, and the entire writing staff had to rewrite the whole show at 6 o'clock, knowing that you're going on air at 8.
How does that work for the wrestlers who have to memorize their lines and shit?
That's a good question. They just have to memorize their lines to the best of their ability. And a lot of them, people don't really understand that a lot of the times in wrestling, the guys are calling it in the ring. Most of the time, I think they're calling it in the ring. So it's just familiarity with working with people. You work a lot of house shows, the untelevised shows. With each other, and you just kind of and then they, when they're doing headlocks or whatever, sorry if there are kids watching this, if they're headlocks, they'll be okay, bounce, rope bounce, suplex, elbow, and then we'll meet back up, and then they do it. That's why the Kenny Omega Will Ospreay match is crazy, because I couldn't see them calling it anywhere, and I think they were just doing it off the cuff, which is insane. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but anyway, back to the Vince McMahon thing. He would come in Monday. I mean, he lived in a bubble is the short version of what I'm trying to say. He lived in a bubble where his whole life, people in the company, his daughter included, who was also in the company, have said he would die. There's a spot called Gorilla Position, which is right behind the curtain where people would come out, and there's desks and monitors, and he's got a headset on, and he's calling things and running the show and everything like that. People said he would die in Gorilla. He was never going to retire. He was never going to step down. He was going to be in that position until the day he died. And he's what, 77 now, I think?
Yeah, he's up there.
78.
Yeah.
And so he had to step down because of the allegation, and he went quietly into the night, which is not, when the allegations first came out and the SEC was investigating him for bad stuff, he would start going out on TV and just having a promo being we're all in this together, basically a way of being I'm still here, you can't touch me. And then I guess they got to the point where it was the board of directors was you need to step down. So this was 7 or 8 months ago, maybe actually 5 or 6 months ago, but he stepped down. Triple H, who most people will know as a wrestler, he's actually been running a lot of the creative behind the scenes, and so he was brought in and just took solely over the creative in the entire company. He had been doing the creative for just the developmental brand. He was brought up to do the creative on everything, which is funny because months prior, Vince had actually taken away control of developmental creative from him, and basically scrapped everything he had come up with, and fans hated that.
Wow,
because
that's crazy.
His Triple H's stuff is better. It's more entertaining and more cohesive.
Yeah. Well, of course, because he's a wrestler too. He knows what works and what doesn't work.
Exactly, yeah, and he's just got a really great ear to the ground for what fans are looking for. So Vince steps down, Triple H takes over creative. Stephanie McMahon, who had literally maybe a couple weeks before had said she's taking a leave of absence from the company because at the time Triple H had been having some health issues. He had like a cardiac event, and so Steph was wanted to be with him. She's his daughter, for those who don't know. Stephanie McMahon is Vince's daughter and has always been a part of the company for the most part, whether it was on screen or off screen or both.
Are her and Triple H together?
They are together. They're married.
They're together. Okay, yeah. So I thought so.
Vince steps down. The company names her and this, one of the other executives, Nick Khan, as co-CEOs. So she had stepped away from the company, and then they kind of trashed her in I think it was like Business Insider. They kind of like low-key thrown shade at her for she's not that great. And then Vince steps down, and then they bring Stephanie McMahon in to be co-CEO with Nick Khan of the company in Vince's place, and Triple H takes over creative. Cut to 5 or 6 months later, everything's going great. Everyone's really enjoying the product. Morale is much higher backstage amongst the wrestlers because shows aren't getting rewritten at the last minute. Storylines are getting more cohesively told. Everybody's kind of getting pushed instead of just certain people that Vince likes better. Everything's going great. Last week, it comes out that Vince is saying he wants to come back and that he thinks he got bad advice being told to step down, and that it would have blown over if he had just stayed in his position of power, which is already a huge red flag. So then he had it. So because of the way that the stock situation was held up, he does not have the majority of stocks, but he had the majority of the power in the company. So even though he had stepped down, he still owned the majority share. And so of like the power stocks, I'm trying to simplify this as much as I can for those who might not. If you watch Succession, it'll help. So he basically had it in his. He basically came out and said any sale or financial transactions that are happening of the company, whether we sell WWE to Disney or Comcast or whomever, he has to approve it. And he came out and said, I'm not approving any sale or any licensing agreement unless I'm brought back as chairman of the company. And it's like, damn. Oh man, that's kind of messed up. And then the board unanimously said, no, when you left, the stock prices went up. And then he makes this announcement, and of course the stock price goes up again because now he's mentioning a sale, and the stockholders are like, ooh, sale means money. So it's smart. Well, here's the craziest twist on this. So WWE has a deal in place with Saudi they do, I think, 2 shows a year, at least 1 show a year there, where they fly all the wrestlers over to Saudi, they perform there. There's a lot of ethical, legal, moral, gray is giving it some benefit, but most people don't love the idea of you going over, but they pay through the nose. I mean, they have like $1 billion deal with them to fly out. Yeah. There. It's like $1 billion to do like 1 to 2 shows a year for 10 years. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah.
So turns out, well, this is all rumor at this point. This is speculation. But at this point, I don't know when the podcast airs, 10 more things might have happened. But the heavy circulating rumor right now is that Vince is selling the company to Saudi, or the like Saudi embassy of blah, 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 Saudi. Yeah. He's selling the company, or they have a handshake agreement that they're going to be working up to sell the company to Saudi, which would then take the company private, meaning no more shareholders. He doesn't have to worry about other people. He doesn't have to worry about when you're privately traded, or a private company, you don't have to worry about SEC investigations because the SEC makes sure that you're not ripping off your shareholders. So
Yeah,
if the
yeah.
company's private, he doesn't have to worry about that, and they will let him stay in power as the chairman and probably give him back control of the company. So he weaseled his way back in last Friday. Stephanie McMahon, 2 hours before the Saudi news started leaking, tendered her resignation from the company. And
What?
stepped down and was like, I took a leave of absence, and then when everything happened, I came in to make sure that the company was in a good place. Now I feel like it is as strong as it's ever been, and as a result, I'm stepping away. I'm permanently stepping away from the company. And it's like, she didn't want to be anywhere. She didn't want her name anywhere near that Saudi news whatsoever. I guarantee that's what it is. So it's
Also,
insane. It's like an episode of Succession happening in real life.
so I probably missed the. Does he have the most shares out of all the stockholders?
He does not have the most shares total, but the way shares work, and I'm not a financial expert. I am getting this information third party from other people who understand it far better than I do. He is not the majority stock shareholder, but the shares that he have like a power associated with them. So like you and I could be stock owners, like, we could buy stock in WWE and technically be shareholders of the company. The shares that he owns have like voting power for the board of directors and whatnot. And I think he had like something like 60 or 70% of the voting power in the company.
I see what you're saying.
Except the board of directors can outvote him if they all combine. So I guess it's not like 60%, but it's. I think he has the majority, and I don't want to go too far into it because I'm going to say wrong things.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like if the board of directors can outvote him, I don't understand how he can make a deal with Saudi to give them WWE. I just don't see how that works because it's publicly traded right now.
This is a bit that I had kind of glossed over. So the board of directors unanimously voted no to bring him back. And then he used his authority to fire several board members and then bring back old like chair members that he himself had fired. He brought them back so that they would vote him, because he didn't have the majority power, but he did have the ability to fire chair people.
That makes sense now.
Fired 2 board members, brought in his own board members. Stephanie steps down, and because she also probably didn't want to be a part of the vote against her father. He installs these people who it's like, hey, even though I fired you for not being good enough, in my personal opinion, in his personal opinion, I'm going to bring you back so that you can bring me back and we all come back at the same time. And so he reinstates them onto the board of directors. They vote him back in. Now he's got the ability to broker this sale that he's talking about. Maybe. There was no like deal on the table, but like. And
damn,
they bring him back. He comes back in. Now he wants to sell the company, make it private so that he can stay in control.
Dude, that's like a twist. That's like a twisted movie. That's like a M. Night Shyamalan type of movie.
Yeah,
dude, it's crazy, man.
And at the heart of it is like a 78-year-old narcissist who has control issues. I mean, like he hates sneezing. That's how much he's a control freak. If you sneeze in a boardroom, he will get mad at you. If he sneezes himself, he gets furious. That's how much of a control freak he is. Like, that's a well-known thing. I mean, there's for also, this might ruin our WWE sponsorship, but from what I understand, in case anyone here wants to give Vince McMahon the benefit of the doubt as to what kind of person he is, this is technically rumor and speculation, but there is a female wrestler years back who do I want to tell this story on a podcast? It might be better if we skip it. Let's just say there was a female wrestler who was taken advantage of at a WWE event. I'm not going to say which one, but it was one where the wrestlers were more exposed to civilians. Well, I guess not civilians. Take that as you will. And they were there for several days, and one of the female wrestlers was drugged.
Oh my God.
And taken advantage of. it was as bad as you think it is. Worst case scenario, she was not able to fly back to America during the process. Something about her passport or something like that. So that's when that happened. She came back to the company and was like, "Hey, this just happened to me. This horrible, horrible, horrible thing just happened to me."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, don't tell anyone about it because we don't want to make this deal that we have look bad."
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So he's a horrible person. He's a horrible person.
So we'll leave Vince McMahon and the WWE where it is right now. But I mean, I'm sorry, y'all. I know we're not trying to like be negative.
Yeah, I'm not
but
trying
there
to bring
are
the mood
stories.
down,
Yeah, there's some stories out there that it just interests us, and it kind of falls in line. So there's another story talking about corporate greed and stuff like that. D&D is and Hasbro and stuff.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast is having their own dumpster fire happening right now too. So going into. Do you mind if I jump into this?
Go ahead, man. I know a little bit about it. You know more about. So Zach and I are in a D&D campaign together. He's actually our DM. I'm one of the players. I actually just got into D&D. Zach's been playing D&D for a couple of years, and it's really fun. So when we heard about this news, actually, we played D&D on Tuesday.
Yeah, a couple days
and
ago.
I found out about it, and I read about what's going on. So take it away, Zach. What's going on?
Yeah. I hope that people enjoy the sound of my voice as much as I enjoy the sound of my voice, because this episode is very me talky.
It's okay. I'll interject when I can.
Appreciate you. So, for those who don't know, or I'm sure many do, but again, this podcast is for the average nerd, we welcome all nerds here, hardcore nerds, very vague nerds, but I think you and I are like smack dab in the middle. So we're in the middle. This is for the people who don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons has, for the last 23 years, had what's called the Open Gaming License. I think it's 1.0A. And basically, the nutshell version of this, and please take this with a grain of salt, the information I'm getting is from all the other nerds that I talk to and listen to and videos and stuff like that. So I'm kind of regurgitating information. I apologize if I get anything wrong. The Open Gaming License allows people to take D&D content and create their own content with it. So
that's what I read.
Yeah. So there are certain things that are technically not something that they can claim ownership over. The rolling mechanics, the attacking, please roll a D20 to see if it hits. And then it does hit. And it's like, okay, well now roll a D8 to see how much damage you do. That they can't technically claim ownership over. However, things like monsters, things like storylines, things like anything that they've come up with that is technically original to them, is open gaming. So they basically said, you can use our products, create your own thing. There are a lot of D&D books that are open gaming, meaning somebody else has created them, and you can use them, you can stream them. People can talk about Dungeons and Dragons and all of those things that I previously mentioned that they technically have ownership. They can create YouTube series. You can watch a YouTube that says how to be the best dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons possible, and Dungeons and Dragons and their owner, who is the person who owns Dungeons and Dragons, is Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro.
Right. So
you can do all those things, and they won't come looking for a chunk of your money, essentially.
Right.
For 23 years, they've had this thing that basically said, "Hey, we will honor this. You will be able to do this. We're all a community." And in fact, when it came out, when this open gaming license came out in 2000, I think 2001, they basically people were cautious and were wondering, well, what happens if this changes? Whenever they have it in the contract that the open gaming license that is currently active, the 1.0A, it covers D&D now for and it's like, even if we change it in the future, this still covers everything that has happened during that time. So right now we're playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Before this was 4th edition. Actually, 4th edition wasn't covered under the open gaming license, and it was kind of an issue. 3rd edition and 5th edition are covered by this open gaming license. And they basically said, even if we change it, the open gaming license 1.0a will cover everything leading up to any changes. So even if we did change it, you could still just stick with 5e. So there's a new Dungeons and Dragons rule set that they're playing through. I don't know if you know this. That's called I think it's D&D 1 or 1 D&D. I can't remember which order it is. Basically, they're coming up with a new rule system, coming up with new stuff. They do this every now and then. Few and far between. It's kind of like when you get a new video game console. It's like, hey, there's a new D&D rule set. So they are now talking about changing it to Open Gaming License 1.1, and they released a little bit of a statement, but then apparently a bunch of the context of it actually leaked. People think internally, like a lot of the people who are just working there were like, whoa, this isn't cool. So the Open Gaming License 1.1, again, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, so or kind of regurgitating information, so take it with a grain of salt. But I believe what it had said was that they will take 25% of revenue from anybody who makes more than $750,000 doing this. So my thought, I don't know if it technically affects them or if they have more negotiating power, but my first thought goes to Critical Role and Dimension 20. Because that's how they make their money. But some of the stipulations to agree this is that if you basically sign to use their product, even if you don't make that $750,000, and they can change that at any time with 30 days notice. So at any time they can just say, you know what, that 25%, let's make it 50. Let's make it 75. Worse yet, they have a clause in there that at any point they can shut down your product, but continue to sell it and make all of the revenue off of it.
That's what I read. And a lot of people were up in arms about it. And there was, what I read was there was an online petition, class action lawsuit against Hasbro and the Wizards of the Coast, pretty much to stop this from happening, because you're taking money out of people's mouths, essentially, like how you were talking about, like indie games, pretty much people who creating their own stories, they put their heart and soul into something, and Hasbro can be like, hey, I know we're a billion-dollar company, but we want more.
They made $1 billion last year.
Yeah, we want more money. We want your money.
Yeah, we want to take money from the small fish rather than just being. I mean, they're already the big fish.
They're the big fish. They're the biggest fish.
But they're greedy. They're trying to reach in and say, well, if I can nickel and dime 1 million people, great. I'm going to make that much more money. And it's like, and the thing is, you're talking to a community of people who, for fun, sit down, play fantasy to take down, like, usually a corrupt king or a big bad villain. And you're sitting them down and being like, and these are all creative people. I mean, I said it earlier about MAGFest. Nerds are some of the most creative people on the planet.
Yeah.
You're taking these people and you are saying, okay, we're gonna be the big bad corporation. I'm like, their whole lives are spent role playing what to do when a big bad comes in. Like if Matt Mercer, who, if you don't know, Matt Mercer is the brainchild behind Critical Role. He's the DM and has released his own books for Critical Role stuff. I mean, and not to mention they have spin-off shows. They have tons and tons of content.
Right.
Matt Mercer is beloved by nerds. So is Brennan Lee Mulligan, for the record, who runs Dimension 20, who's an alternate version of Critical Role. Shout out to Brennan Lee Mulligan. If you're watching this, I love you. If Matt Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan or both, but especially Matt Mercer, just because I think he's he's more mainstream. If he
Mm-hmm.
came out and said, "Okay, cool, we've come to," I mean, it would be, corporate and well typed out. But if he basically came out and said, "We're shaking hands as friends and going our separate ways. I'm going to be creating my own version, a new version of Dungeons and Dragons that's going to be called Myths and Mazes or something like that."
Right, right.
And people, the fan base would abandon Wizards of the Coast and immediately follow Matt Mercer because A, he's beloved by fans. B,
Mm-hmm.
fuck big corporations, and this is like I said, a group of nerds who sits down and in their free times pretends on how to take down big bad evil people.
Yeah.
What an opportunity to do it in real life and support Matt Mercer and Critical Role or Brennan Lee Mulligan and Dimension 20 at the same time. Like,
It's just
it's a
crazy to
losing
me.
bet.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me though. Like I don't know what executives or who in the board was like, "Hey, I got a great idea. Let's attack the people who buy our stuff."
Yeah, like let's take this community of people. Imagine if, for example, I can't even think of a good enough analogy for this. If
Yeah.
this is saying that for 23 years we've let you guys build a community with the bones that we have and we gave to you, and you guys can really flesh out the rest of everything, and you guys can create, and you guys can have a safe place to do whatever you want and create whatever you want, and we encourage it. We want you to go out and not only that, but have gone as far as helping people publish their books and incorporating
Mm-hmm.
it into D&D lore and things like that. And please have YouTube channels and have podcasts and have create art and draw this or create that and then halfway through being like, well, not halfway through, but then changing your mind 23 years later and saying, no, we want that money, and not only do we want that money,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be 25% if you make above a certain amount, but we can change our minds at any point because you still have to sign that agreement. And if you sign that agreement, you are signing away the rights to your product, your whatever, in perpetuity, meaning forever. So if you sign this, then forever I have my hands. We're business partners forever. But this business partnership says I can change how much I'm taking from you, or I can just outright stop you from doing it and then take it and continue publishing it myself at any point and just shut you down
Yeah.
and give you 30 days notice at best. So if you
Yeah.
make your livelihood doing this, and then I change my mind and decide I don't want you doing this, you're too much of a competition, or you're making a lot of money and I'm tired of giving you 75% and taking 25%, I'm going to take all of it and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Who would agree to that, and why would they
Yeah.
agree to it?
Yeah. It's crazy.
And like I said, the community is too smart, too creative, and too passionate to just be like, okay, they will create an alternative. Like,
Yeah.
there are alternative tabletop games already that don't use D&D, and they'll just do that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I just got into D&D and I love it a lot, but I mean, if everyone starts bailing and to something else, I'll do it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna follow.
and to be fair, I think that there are um I don't want to discourage people from playing. If it doesn't technically, if I mean, I personally, I think that if I agree with you, if they go through with this open gaming license, change the terms, make people agree to this, I'll just find an alternative because
Mm-hmm.
I want to support these indie creators. I want to support the
Mm-hmm.
people who I care about. But it doesn't affect people playing day to day as much. So don't feel
Yeah.
like you have to abandon it. Don't feel like if you want to stand on the hill with the rest of us and say this is the hill we die on, there's more than enough room for everyone. But if you also just want to say, hey, I've been playing this game with my friends for a week, a month, a year, a decade, and I'm not going to just stop doing it because I have no monetary value in this. I have no skin in the game other than just watching what happens with other creators. That is perfectly acceptable. If you want to just play with your friends still, please just play with your friends. However, try to find a way, maybe if you can, to support these indie creators. Maybe try their games. If Matt Mercer comes out or Brennan Lee Mulligan comes out with their own alternate version of D&D, Mischief of Mazes, try it, play it, see if you like it, see if it works for you, and then do whatever. But I don't want people to feel there's a lot of nerd pressure to like fight against the man, which I'm all for, but I also don't want people to feel obligated either.
Yeah. Let's stop dwelling in the negative.
Sure.
Yeah. I think we've hit on a couple topics already that I don't want to bring people down.
The thing is, we have to cover these huge
I
things
know.
That's why that's not our vibe.
I know. I feel bad because we keep saying, so it's funny. We keep saying like we're not negative, but then we're like,
we're not negative, but like, but thus far, 60% of your podcast is negative talking.
Yeah. Look, these are just some news topics that have come out recently, so it's just something that we thought that they're passionate to our hearts. So we kind of just want to get it out and tell you all because you probably all feel the same way and.
Believe me, we don't want to be negative either. If big corporations and CEOs, billionaires could stop being dicks, we'll stop being negative. But when you're a dick publicly, we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some fun stuff.
Yeah. So we're gonna hit a topic that we actually haven't hit yet, and it's near dear to our hearts, especially for both of us since we've been watching since we were little. We're gonna talk about anime. Right now. So Zach, let's say we've never watched anime, okay? But we have someone come up to us say, "Hey, have you watched anime?" No, I haven't. And let's give someone a top 3 recommendation. Let's recommend some animes to someone who's never
3 animes
watched
you would
anime.
pick to get somebody into. Like earlier, I was talking about the Kenny Omega Will Ospreay Wrestle Kingdom match. If
pretty much.
If you wanted to get somebody into wrestling, you show them this match because this is the thing that makes you go, "Wow, this is entertaining."
Something like a story that's easy to follow. It's not too taxing on the mind. Something they could just pop on and then like, all right, I love anime now.
It's interesting because I don't necessarily agree with it needing to be something that's like easy. It could be. So let's do this. Why don't we go back and forth? We'll go. I'm gonna try to do this in an order. But I think actually I'm not. I lied.
You don't have to be in order.
I lied, listeners. We'll go back and forth, and we'll in no particular order. We'll go back and forth, and because I'm interested to see what you do, but I also don't want to like step on your 3 either. So we can tag back and forth. Would you like to go first, or shall I?
I'll go first. First. Okay. Let me think. First one that comes to my mind would probably be like Sword Art Online.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I love Sword Art. I just don't know if I would use it as a way to hook people right away.
Really? Why is that? Why?
Fight your case.
Okay, so the reason being is that at least Sword Art season 1, like the first season 1, you can pop it on. It's pretty straightforward on what it goes into. As you're following along the story, you still have the narrator, Kirito, still talking about what's going on through the story, so you don't have to feel lost about, like, I mean, if you're watching, like, you jump into, like, watching One Piece or Naruto, and, I mean, 100 to 300 to 400 plus episodes you gotta watch, something that's, like, I don't know, 10 to 12
like
episodes.
Bite-size
something that you can just, like, fill in a weekend or, just watch when you can. And art style and overall characters, and you still get that you get that thrill of getting to love these characters. That's what we love about anime. You get to feel like you're the character, and when they win or they lose, you feel every emotion. So I think Sword Art is it's a good starter.
So here's the thing. I adore Sword Art Online. It is one of my favorite series. I'm like giving my nerd resume on Sword Art. I love Sword Art. I watch it religiously. I've read the books, not the manga. They have Sword Art progressive books, which it goes floor by floor. For those who've never seen Sword Art, it's they get trapped in a video game where they have to complete 100 levels, and each level is like a different, basically like a small planet almost. like a continent, but it gets smaller as you go up.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes like they skip. The anime kind of does time skips because they're
Time
trapped
skips.
in the game for a long time.
Long time.
The books, the progressive books, go floor by floor. And the author even says at the end of like the third one, he's like, I am inadvertently going floor by floor, and there are 100 floors, and I am working at the rate of about a book per year, which I don't know what that means for this series, because I won't live to be 145 years old. It's very interesting. But they're fun fact, they're actually, I believe, making a Sword Art Online progressive series. They're doing Sword Art like a floor by floor. So fun fact. That said, all of that said, for the record, also as a voice actor, I have to give a shout out because Bryce Papenbrook and Sharmi Lee are the two main voice actors, and they are both phenomenal.
They're very good.
Yeah, if I'm ever a quarter as successful as either of them, I will have a very good career. That said, in terms of first animes, I think it might be a little. I always think about would I get my wife into it, and it can be a little bit overwhelming in terms of like the story, because it does jump, it does take storyline leaps. But then also it's weird because Sword Art, the first half of Sword Art is being trapped in the game. The second half of the first season is kind of like it should have been a second season, in my opinion. And it gets a little weird. It gets a little like
okay. Well, I guess with you saying, because it has been a minute since I've watched Sword Art. I forgot that the second half kind of like does a flip.
Yeah, I think they could have spent more of the first season dedicated
in the game type.
SAO. No, that's
okay.
Sword Art Online. What's the world that they're trapped in?
Top
of my head.
Good. Dude, it's I'm blank.
It doesn't matter.
Well, doesn't matter. Okay, fine. Maybe not.
You don't get to change it now. That's
no. I'm not changing. I'm not changing. I'm saying okay. Well, that's my pick for number one. What would you pick as number one?
My go-to knee-jerk answer whenever anyone asks what would be an anime you recommend to get people into anime is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Okay, I'm glad you said Brotherhood because
for those who don't know, I watched Full Metal Alchemist, not Brotherhood, before Brotherhood came out. And they ran out, so they were doing it alongside the manga. And then the manga, like, they got ahead of it, and they were like, what do we do? And so the story just comes off the rails really hard, and then has a really unsatisfying ending, and then they do, like, a movie, which is also completely unsatisfying. Brotherhood is done after the manga is completed, and then they just stick to the manga story the entire time, and it's so good.
It's, so, as you know, you have a Harry Potter tattoo.
Yep.
My right arm is a half sleeve kind of dedicated to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood because I adore Full Metal Alchemist. It's actually my number one favorite. My number one.
Number one. That's one of the reasons I recommend it.
It's my background on my phone. It's I live and breathe that. I watch it over and over again. I don't. Okay, I can see why you say that's a number one because
it has one of the best anime storylines, in my opinion. That it's not hard to follow. It's simple but
to a
complicated
point
at the same time.
I was gonna say to a point. It can get complicated.
That it is boringly simple. It is a simple concept to understand with great twists and turns and stories, everything like that. It is a very, very well told story.
It is very well told.
And the anime-ness of it never gets too campy, in my opinion. It can get a little cheesy from time to time, but not much, and it's usually only like here and there.
Cheesy, I would say cheesy in a fun way though, because it's funny as shit sometimes. Like when they do the cheesiness.
The cheesiness is good cheesy, but it's not that like okay. So one of the pieces of advice I've gotten as a voice actor for voice acting with anime is that it is well told stories. It's good characters. It is more adult content for the I would say preteens, teens, and above. but it is, at the end of the day, it is still a cartoon, and you still have to overact like it is a cartoon.
Yeah.
So Full Metal. So some animes go way overboard with like the cartooniness of it. I think Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood keeps it in check really well. The jokes that they tell are funny, and even when they're cheesy or cartoony, they're still funny in a way that doesn't dumb itself down.
Yeah. I mean, because like, Al is one of the brothers. He's kind of, yeah, Alphonse is kind of like the one who's more reserved, where Edward is the comedic relief, I guess, because Alphonse kind of keeps Ed kind of calm down, but Ed's like the one who's always, don't do that, you're gonna make me cry. Long story short, this show will pull on all your emotions. It makes you feel things that you probably didn't know you could feel from a cartoon or anime. I've cried at this anime because
okay, so here's something I say constantly about anime is a wonderful storytelling device that can sometimes get bogged down with the cartooniness and the campiness and the cheesiness. But on the whole, anime is able to tell stories that just can't be told anywhere else. Maybe in video games, but for the most part, anime is such a subset, and it takes things. I always use Attack on Titan as an example, because Attack on Titan, for those who don't know, is the nutshell version of this. It is an anime about a community of people living on this island who have big walls around them because there are giants
trying to eat them.
People our size, or people that look like us, but 12, 15, 20 feet tall, and they're out of their mind. They're just giants, and they just go around eating people and ripping them apart, and you know, like you would with ants. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're not technically that much bigger.
We're the ants. We're the ants in that scenario.
Right. We're the ants, and it tells this story of heroism and complex military background, socioeconomic things, loss. I mean, there are things that I don't think you could feel anywhere else, because it's just the medium of cartoon or animation. That's why it's anime and not cartoons. The medium of animation is able to do things that you just can't do in live action. And maybe if you had like a Marvel-sized budget, you could, but even then, it's just anime breaks down moments. They take each individual moment and they dissect it. That's one of the reasons I like sports anime so much, because they take these tiny little moments and they show you inside the head of the person, and they let you hear and see and feel, and they break things down. And I truly believe that if people could get past the cartoonness of anime, that it is one of the best storytelling platforms that there is.
Yeah. Brotherhood is a pretty good, you're right, is a pretty good,
it's a slam dunk.
It's a pretty good one. Go watch it. And
Absolutely
it's great. Make sure it's Brotherhood. Don't watch the first one. Brotherhood is the best. All right. Moving on. Okay. My number two, I would say on the newer spectrum, Demon Slayer.
Ooh.
Demon Slayer is almost like a Full Metal. It has a story that isn't hard to follow.
Yep.
Essentially, it's just a kid who his family was killed by a bunch of demons, and he learns slaughtered. Yeah. And he goes through loss of losing his mother and sisters, except for one who he saves. She was bitten by a demon. She starts to turn, and he finds a way to like stop the process from happening, so she's still alive. But he learns how to combat these. Yeah, she's still a demon, yeah. And she's like an asset to him. She's like a weapon that helps him through his journey. But then he learns skills on how to hunt these demons because he wants revenge. And you get to feel for him, and then you get to find more of these hunters where he joins his ranks, and it's not that hard to follow, but you have the art style of that anime is so beautiful.
The art style is
it is
one of the biggest
beautiful. If anything you take away from it, the story itself, but the art style, just the artwork,
especially during the combat scenes, when
the combat scenes,
flames and water and lightning, it's gorgeous. And I'll give you this too: Demon Slayer is another one that is simple, but not. That doesn't make it boring. It's easy to understand. It's easy to process. There's a lot of anime that you kind of have to know, like the magic style or the whatever style, and they get their superpowers through this and this and this, and he's using this ability and cross combining it with this and this. Demon Slayer is very simple. I mean, they all have their sword styles and stuff like that. But it's very digestible. It's like this dude uses a fire technique. This guy uses a water technique. Now watch him be cool. And like the demons all have different abilities, but it's never like, it's very easy to explain. It's very digestible. So there's not a lot of thinking that you have to do. You can just kind of let it tell you its story, and you don't have to like actively try to be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to like. It's very cut and dry. Like, these are the good guys, the hunters, the demons are the bad ones, and there you go. Let the story tell itself, and boom. So that's my number 2. What would be your number 2?
That's a very good one. I'm actually going the opposite.
Okay.
Especially fellers, my wife, and probably women you're interested in, really like true crime and murder and serial killers. They're fascinated by them.
That's another topic we could talk about on another episode of podcast, because I'm interested in that too. Why all women like that?
So, what I would recommend, because I love it for myself, but especially if you're trying to hook your lady who likes true crime into anime.
I know where you're going with this.
Death Note.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew you were going that way.
Death Note. So Death Note, for those who don't know what Death Note is an anime about a high school kid. For the record, in anime, whenever you have high school kids, 90% of the time they look like full-grown adults. So even though he's a high schooler, you don't feel like you're watching a 15, 16-year-old. You feel like you're watching like a 25-year-old. Or 30.
Yeah, they're like 15, and they're like...
The older I get, the more I age them up. I'm like,
they're like... they're 15 in the show, but they're traveling to different countries by themselves. They got money out the ass. Like, I don't how.
I don't know Japanese culture as well from America, but it feels like he's a little bit too independent. But... But it is about a high school aged guy he's a genius, like a full blown. I think he's got perfect memory, like all of that. It's not perfect memory. What is it? It's perfect pitch and photographic memory.
Yeah.
So he's a genius, full on genius, and in this anime, and I think in Japanese culture, they have shimagamis, which are death gods.
Death gods, yep.
So this death god drops his death note, which is where they put the names of the people who die, and it causes them to die. I don't know if the death gods have to actually do it or if they just have their own. But anyway, he drops his into the human world, and when you drop it into the human world, and a human picks it up, if you write somebody's name in the book, and you can picture their face in your mind when you write it, they will die within, I think, like 7 minutes or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of rules that make it extra complicated. You can't, you can write the cause of death, but if it's unplausible, then it won't happen. So if you just write their name, they have a heart attack. But you can write, like, gets hit by car, and they'll get hit by a car. Unless they're in the middle of the desert or on an abandoned island.
Like, you can't Looney Tune this. Like, you can't be like, an Acme safe falls out of ceiling or out of the sky. Right. It's got to make sense.
Right. So, but you could write something like shot by assistant. So, let's say the CEO of some company has a personal assistant, and you can write like personal assistant accidentally poisons blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, well then and I think at that point it pushes it from a 7-minute window to like a 24-hour window. Of like within 24 hours he will be handed a cup of coffee that has poison in it by accident, rat poison rather than sugar, and etc., and that will work. The appeal of the show is not the murdering. The appeal of the show is that he is because he's got this notebook and that's how he's killing people, and that's not how things work normally. So people can't figure out how these people are dying randomly, but they can tell that there's like a string of connections because he sees himself as this second coming of God, where he's killing mostly criminals, bad guys, and people like that. But the police are still like, hey, people are being murdered.
Right.
It's a no-no. So they hire in this like very, 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 very brilliant detective who is like, he does things on like a pay per job situation, and he's also a genius with photographic memory. And so, but because of that, he is somebody, he's very cautious, and so he never shows his face. He always does everything from laptop or whatever. So the dynamic of the show picks up pretty quickly of, you've got this serial killer who's hiding behind this magic book, he can't be, he's not out in the open killing people. And then you've got this detective who's also hiding his face and his name. And they kind of chase after each other. The main character, who's the murderer, is trying to figure out who the detective is so that he can kill him, so that he can continue going back to doing his stuff, without somebody hunting him. And then the detective who is hunting him and trying to figure out who he is. And it's just a chess game. The whole anime is just the main character is Light, is his name. And then ironically, the detective's name is L. He just goes by L for short.
Yeah.
So Light and L go back and forth, and you'll be like, oh, Light just did this thing. He's very smart. He used the page, the Death Note, in order to he realized he can take a page out of the Death Note and keep it in so that he doesn't have to have the book on him. So, and you're like, cool. He just set up L, and L's going to totally expose himself. Brilliant move by Light. And then L sees what's coming, adapts to it, and actually uses it to his advantage so that he can draw out Light into the public. It's just one chess move after another with two grandmasters playing each other, and it's complicated, and it makes you think. It is not campy at all. It is one of the few cartoon or animes that doesn't have any cartooniness to it. It is very dark.
It's very dark.
It's very dark. It's very adult. But especially if you like murder drama, if you like serial killers, if you like any of that, or if you're the person you're trying to get into likes any of those things, it's an easy. It's also only 12 or 24 episodes, I think. I think it's 2 seasons of 12 episodes each. So it's not hard. It's very digestible. You can get through it in a weekend if you wanted to.
Yeah.
However, I had to take little breaks because it is very dark.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the main character, Light, who's got this Death Note and killing people, the death god that dropped it and gave it to him, once he touches it, he can see the death god, and so the death god just kind of follows him around for a while for the majority of the series, and it's just
talks to him and stuff like that.
See it, talks to him and stuff like that. But he is not in Light's favor. He just says, I'm here for the entertainment, and I'm going to watch what happens. So he'll be like, hey, can you tell me who's trailing me right now? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
So it's such a great dynamic. It's so fascinating. Yeah. It's a murder mystery thriller, and I think if you are trying to get adults into anime, I think it is a really good starting point because it shows that not all anime has to be cartoony screaming all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. My wife isn't into anime really. She'll watch it with me once in a while. She'll peek up at it. But that's the one thing that she doesn't like about too much of the anime that I watch is that, she's like, I don't understand why they yell a lot. I'm like, it is a cartoon.
Dude, I'm watching One Piece for the first time. I am on episode 99 right now. It's so good. It took me about 30 episodes to really get into the swing of it, and then they have one big arc that I was like, oh, no, I'm invested.
Mm-hmm.
I cried.
You got a lot to go, man. You got a lot to go. Yeah.
But it's a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
And like not the fun kind. Like Dragon Ball Z yelling is at least like aggressive punching yelling. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm charging up my attack.
Yeah.
One Piece has a lot of like, you idiot, what are you doing? Oh my god, give me
Yeah.
back my food. Why are you? And it's like, guys, do we have to scream all the time?
Yeah.
And like, it's fun. I like it. I don't mind
Yeah.
it. But like,
I don't either.
do know my wife will be like, I'm gonna go upstairs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm driving her away from anime.
So this is like an honorable mention before I mention my third. I don't know if you've seen it. It's JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Okay, I've seen episodes of JoJo's, especially from voiceover training, but I've never actually like sat down and watched it, and I've been told to do it, but it's on my list.
It's okay. So to explain JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, it's pretty much follows the Joestar family. All the seasons progress into different generations of the Joestar family, essentially, and their Joestar family essentially is trying to eliminate these. Well, at least the first couple seasons is trying to eliminate the big bad. His name's Vincent, who is a vampire-esque creature.
Okay.
Like he originally was a human, but put on this mask. Who put on this mask that was given through a different adaptation of human being, but wasn't a human being. Who lived underground, who developed powers, essentially, who were like vampires. So he becomes a vampire. So JoJo was the first one. Is his goal to defeat Vince and, eliminate him because he's trying to take over the world. But JoJo also, like that style of anime, it's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of yelling in it, but it is very funny. I'd say season 1 can be a little dry, a little bit, but if you can get past it, because it's not that many episodes, if you can get past it and get to season 2, to season 3, and further on, it is very funny, and it cracks me up every time I watch it, because they have action, and it's very, like, you get into it, but it has that humor behind it. I highly recommend, that's an honorable mention, I highly recommend you watch it. I recommend anyone to watch it if they're trying to get an anime. It's an easy type of anime that you can just sit back and just watch. You don't really need to like be too engaged with, I guess, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my third would I think would be My Hero. My Hero Academia is a pretty easy anime to follow. It's a pretty easy anime to get into. It's another anime, essentially, it's a society of normal humans like us and adaptation in humans who develop superpowers, essentially. And the superpowers are called quirks. And everyone has quirks that are good. You can fly or... No, I'm saying... hold on. I'm saying, like, you could have people who can have quirks that are good, where you could fly or have lightning, or you could be super fast, or you could have quirks that suck. Like, okay, I can grow extra limbs to hold things, or charge a battery, or, see into the future maybe 1 second. It depends on what a coin flip of what
Literally
you get when you
skin made of like fingernail material.
Yeah,
like, I guess this is fine. Or like there are people whose like heads get turned into like boom boxes and stuff. No, what I meant is I think it's like 97% of the population has quirks. Remember that? So the whole premise behind My Hero, the main character, doesn't have a quirk.
You're right. Yeah,
I know. Actually.
Okay, I'm sorry. You don't need to retcon this. Okay, dude, sorry.
My Hero Academia is one of my all-time favorites of all time.
Me too.
One of my all-time favorites of all time. It's just it's good. It's not that campy, despite the fact that it is a more kids-based anime. I think it's considered one of the big three of this generation.
The new big three.
Like the OG anime 3 is like Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z, and Inuyasha, I think, or something like that. Bleach.
I guess you would say that for that generation, people consider the big three is One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach.
Yeah,
is
fair.
what they consider the big three.
Yeah, and that's because literally they're huge.
Yeah, like
One Piece is 1,000 episodes and still going with no plans on slowing down.
Yeah, and they just have cult following storylines. Like people just love. Like if you're into anime, people just love them and revisit them because they just deep dive into stuff that you like.
And like we were talking about, the stories that they are able to tell are you're unable to tell them in such a. I mean, think about it: 1,000 episodes of One Piece. You get to be intimately familiar with these characters. You get and the nice thing about anime, especially like Shonen Jumps like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, these really long ones, is that the main theme behind them is generally like the power of friendship, the power of hope, the connections that tie us together, the connections of family and love and these things, and then everything else is just kind of telling that story in different ways over and over again. So like you get these really well told stories that again, I am not a crier, and anime has made me cry on several occasions, and I don't say that with like, you know, shame in my heart or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
no.
They just tell a story and it just sneaks up on you where like you're watching this person fight against adversity and believe in their friends when nobody else would believe in them, and or Attack on Titan where like at one point I don't want to give any spoilers away, but like Attack on Titan makes you question the nature of like, these are my allies, these are my brothers in arms, we fought wars together, and now they're betraying me, or I'm betraying them, or whatever the case may be, but I'm betraying them for the sake of the world and making sure that the world doesn't explode, so I have to turn on my friends because they're standing against me because they want the world to end. And it's like, it just, those kind of stories, standing against brothers and allies who have fought with you before because now their motivations have soured and now they're trying to control the world that they had originally set out to save. That's not something you can just tell in an easy TV show or a movie or even like a live action series. This is something that has to be told in the medium that it is being told.
Yeah.
And everything else is just the pieces that they use to tell it.
Yeah, I mean, just like last episode, how we talked about movies, like I say, books being turned into something or anything that has a story would, I'd say, best be told as a show because you can get those details, and that's why I love anime, because these are mangas, which are they're books being told into shows where you can fit the bits and pieces. Because I mean, essentially these animes, the shows, are the mangas, but just in digital form. So like you get the feel, and you get the feel. Usually, it follows the manga all the way through, so you get to feel everything. And My Hero is another one of those animes where you feel things, like you just you feel things from it.
And it's funny because again, it is I would say on the age spectrum, I would put it into the like preteen to teenage years of like, that's where they're really targeting, whereas Death Note is targeting an older audience. One Piece might be targeting a younger audience up to the older audience. It's never like that they're not targeting adults, because they just know that adults will always be there, and so they sometimes lower the age threshold, and like adults will usually still hang out. I think My Hero is a wonderful choice, and it probably would have been one of my choices if you had not picked it.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt about. I had to think, because you kind of took Full Metal Alchemist. I was saving that for my third. Yeah, so I had to think. I was like, what's another one that would be good one? So I was like, My Hero. So okay, so those are my three. What would be your third?
I had written it down. Hang on. You know what it is? This is, you know what's interesting? The list is anime you would give people to get into anime, not your best anime of all time. So of course, I'm going to give shout outs real quick, honorable mentions to any of the long ones we were just talking about. One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho. I think it deserves an honorable mention. It's just I think it is slightly time dated now, not in a way that I love it because I have nostalgia for it, and I think that the art style, they don't do anime in that like kind of rough drawing style anymore, and I love it, and I wish they would do it more. But anime has become very clean. Drawn, which is great, but also I don't always want my anime in HD. You know what I mean? I kind of want it to be a little rough around the edges.
That's why you would love JoJo's then.
That's fair. They do have that old school style.
Yeah, yeah.
I am picking Haiku, the volleyball anime, because it does everything I was saying earlier, where it takes small moments. It's an anime about high school volleyball, and that sounds pretty boring. Not to knock you if you like volleyball, if you follow volleyball, good for you, that's great. Volleyball is not a mainstream sport. Not a lot of people watch it that regularly, and my wife has said to me before, do you like volleyball? And I'm like, no. And she's like, do you watch like real people play volleyball? And I'm like, absolutely not, nor do I have any desire to play volleyball.
Anime is the type of thing that can turn anything that's boring into something awesome. Like golf. I don't particularly like golf, but they can be like, all right, if I hit this hole in one, then all I have to do is bank it about 80 degrees this way. Like they get so into it,
just ever so slightly. So if I
then you're like, I think I like golf now.
That's exactly what happened with Hayek. So it's a volleyball thing, and I didn't know anything about volleyball going into this, but so many people recommended it to me, and this was when I was really heavy in the gym, and I just needed content while I was on the elliptical because I had 45 minutes of cardio a day every day for 6 days a week, and I was like, I need stuff. So I watched it, and it hyped me up. So again, they do a good job of explaining it. They understand that not everybody watches volleyball, so they'll be like, oh, he's the setter. The setter's job is to blah 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 blah, and then they explain it. They do that anime thing where they're like, it's happening in real time. So the ball comes to him, he throws, he hits it into the air, and they're like, brilliant. His job is to hit the ball to his teammates. But he knew that they were reading his movements, so what he did is at the last minute he put a backspin on it, and you're like, yeah, of course. And then of course you've got the underdog main character who's this like short guy who wants to be like the big spiker, but he's like short, so he has trouble, but he's got ups, he can jump really high, and he has a spike that is like it's unheard of. He slams this thing down there. And so it's just this like underdog story mixed with this like fun team energy. So you feel bonded to the entire team because you're watching them bond in real time. And one of the things I adore about that anime is that when they're playing under you've got the main character who is the underdog with the other guy who's an underdog. But the entire team is also underdogs, even though they're very good. Because something about their school, like, had fallen. They used to be one of the best teams in the league, and they haven't been for like 10 years because they lost a coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So not only do you have the main character being the underdog story, but then you also have the team being the underdog story. But one of the things I love the most about it is that when they play other teams, or when they go through like training montages where they play other schools and they're getting like destroyed the whole time, it's never aggressive. It's never like, backstabby or somebody working against somebody, or it's literally they'll go train with other teams and they'll be like, getting their butt whooped. They give it a good fight and you hope for the best, and they come close, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the other team will be like, wow, you've got really great X, Y, and Z. But the best way to get better about this is if you do this. And so they end up doing like a bunch of like where like the schools will get together and just kind of do trial matches. And they'll be like, hey, you on that team, come play with us so that we can teach you. And then like these guys are like the top in the league. And it's very wholesome. It's very, but that doesn't make it any less like entertaining in terms of like intensity. It's still a very intense show. It's just fun and wholesome at the same time. So if you're trying to get somebody into anime, it's a really, really good way to get them into it. And I'll be honest, it got me into sports animes, which I hadn't been into previously. And that led me to another honorable mention, which is Kuroko's Basketball. So if you don't want to watch a volleyball anime, which you should, but if you don't, and you would rather start with something more mainstream, Kuroko's Basketball is basketball, and it is about a high school basketball team who is trying to come up against the other teams in their league who have what they call, I can't remember the name of them. They're like the Miracles 5 or the Miracle 6, the Generation of Miracles, that's what it is. Generation of Miracles, which are these like 5 players, 6 technically, who are like imagine Michael Jordan in high school. That's what they're. I mean, these are guys who specialize in certain areas. So there's one guy who can shoot threes from literally anywhere on the entire court. He can make a full court shot if he wants to, and he hits these threes. So you have to be on top of him at all times. Otherwise, he's just going to run up the score. There's another guy who has the ability to like mimic any other player. So if you're fast, he can copy your style and be fast. If you can do long distance shots, he'll watch you real time, learn immediately how you're doing it. And so like the challenge is like, how do you beat someone who can mimic your moves? And it's just, it's fascinating. And it does that anime thing where like in real time, they'll be like, he'll like go for the shot and then it like pauses and it goes into their head and they do like the monologue where they're like, I can see him already bending his knees. He's anticipating my 3 shot.
Yeah.
But if I try to jump now, it's gonna this. So what I'm gonna do is try to spin, and then he spins to go around him, and then the guy who was just about to block him actually didn't jump and anticipated him seeing his jump, and then cuts him off, and he's like, "Oh my God, that was just a ploy to get me to go around him." And it's like, it breaks down the mentality, and normally in like, Naruto, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's cool. But in basketball, like I've talked to people who play basketball and they're like, these are all real thoughts that go through our head. Yeah, they turn the intensity up to 10, but these are real thoughts that you have to think, that you do think and have to think when you're playing basketball, which is like, if I go left and then he's going to go left, then I actually have to fake going left so that I can juke right, but then I have to make sure that I'm anticipating the other player. Like, it does all of they were like, it just happens in a split second, and anime draws that into a 30-second to 3-minute dialogue. But those, I would say, if you're trying to get into anime and you're a sports fan, start there and then work your way into like the more fantastical stuff, like ninjas and titans and stuff like that.
I would agree. You could take our advice, or you can go on the internet, Google it, see what.
I'll personally say I don't watch as much anime as I'd like to. If you have any recommendations for anime for us to watch, throw it in the comments. You can email us, hit us up, slide into our DMs, whatever you want to do, because there's a ton of anime. I've seen a good chunk of anime, and it is nowhere near as much anime as I would like, and as much anime as other people have given to us. So I'm always open to it, especially more digestible ones, 12 episodes, 24 episodes. Like, I'm always trying to take in more and just kind of consume more, because I love it. And again, I'm a voice actor, so for me, I'm enjoying the storytelling, and I'm enjoying what's being passed to me, but I also am listening and learning from the people who are in them, because they're all amazing.
So just go out there and just enjoy a good story. Just go enjoy a good story, feel things. We're cutting in. This is one of our longest.
This is a long
episodes that we've ever had, and we're cutting in at 2 hours and 6 minutes. So
maybe we'll split it into 2 parts and put them up at the same time.
We could, or we just say this is one of those special ones. But
you just get a long one. You're just gonna hang out with us for a while.
Yeah. There's some podcasts out there that do it for hours and hours, but it's okay.
It's our podcast. If you don't like it, get in the comments. Say something about it.
Yeah. Is it too long, or is it not long enough?
Is it too long, or do you wish we had talked more? Should we have done a top 10 rather than a top 3? Let us know.
Yeah. Let us know. You have anything else to add? Because I think we could end it here.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think we're good. I let us know if you agree with our top 3 lists. Let us know. Let us know how you feel about the open gaming license of D&D. If you want to support the communities and fight against the big evil corporation, people have been using the hashtag OpenD&D for open gaming license. So if you want to agree, you can put it in the comments. You can go on Twitter, hashtag OpenD&D, hashtag Roll for Nerdy Check. Let us know if you agree with our top 3 list. If you agree, let us know. Great. If you have other recommendations, we would love to hear your top 3. So throw it in the comments. Facebook, Instagram, whatever streaming service, whatever platform, social media that you're using to consume this, throw it in the comments. Let us know. Do you think that WWE is crazy? Will WWE sell to Saudi and reinstate Vince McMahon in full power? Let us know in the comments. Are you planning on going to MAGFest next year and you want to come hit us up? Put that in the comment. We need comments. It drives us.
Yeah.
And also, we want to build a community here. We love our community.
Yeah.
And we want to keep growing it. So
Yeah.
please comment. We would love to interact with you guys. We're not going to be those stiff people who don't respond. We like talking to our fans.
Yeah, we love talking to people. We love talking. Obviously, we could talk. Me and Zach could talk for hours, days. If we had the energy to, we could. So
literally, when we came up with the idea for the podcast, it was Shane who reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we just do this as it is. We should just stick a camera in front of our faces." And that's exactly what happened. So we're going to try to stick to an hour, but sometimes you're going to get podcasts like this that just go for a while because we're talkers.
Yeah. So like Zach was saying, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the major platforms, iHeartRadio, all of them. Yeah, if you want to check out the video versions of the podcast, go on YouTube, Roll for Nerdy Check channel. All the videos, promos, everything's up there. You want to listen to just the audio version, we're up on all pretty much audio platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Any platform you want to listen to a podcast, we're on it, trust me. And just check out our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Leave comments, check out our stuff, like it.
Subscribe.
We'll answer you. Subscribe to us. Yep, download, definitely. We would love to hear from you guys and get suggestions on topics like this. Do you like the top 3s? Do you like the scenarios that we give? Any information would help and help build this platform that we're trying to create. So
yeah, absolutely. Feedback is totally welcome. You can tell us to go fuck ourselves. Well, that's your right. You're allowed to do that.
It won't hurt my feelings.
Please don't.
I mean,
but
yeah. Other than that, we'll stay nerdy, my friends.
Yeah, stay nerdy. We'll see you next week.